fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The night air tasted of burnt sage and iron, a sharp sting that settled in the hollow of my throat. I stood in the shattered nave of the ancient cathedral, stone slick with rain and the lingering scent of old incense rising from the cracks like ghost-whispered prayers. My silk gown brushed the cold floor, each movement sending a shiver of fabric against my skin, while my leather gloves, stained with dark, pulsing ichor, pressed against the damp stone, a reminder of battles fought and lives lost. A low rumble of thunder matched the rhythm of my own pulse. Moonlight slipped through broken stained glass windows, casting shards of pale light that danced on puddles at my feet. The light fell in jagged patterns, turning the ruined arches into a cathedral of shadows. I could hear the distant howl of wind through the ruined towers, a mournful song that seemed to echo the ache in my heart. From the shadows, Dox emerged, his massive wolf form half-shaded in moonlight. His fur was a tapestry of midnight and ash, each strand catching the faint glow and turning it into living shadow. His eyes, amber like molten copper, glowed with a fierce intelligence. His muzzle brushed my cheek, warm and furred, the scent of smoldering pine flooding my senses and stirring something primal deep within me. I felt the heat of his breath on my skin, a hot whisper that made the hair on my arms rise. "You smell like fire and fear," he murmured, his voice a low thunder that vibrated in my bones. The words rolled over me like a tide, pulling at the hidden currents of desire I had tried to keep buried. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drum of longing and dread, each beat a reminder that I was no longer alone in this ruined sanctuary. Luka stepped from the darkness, his calloused hand finding the pulse at my throat. The scarred skin of his fingers was warm, a stark contrast to the chill of the stone. His eyes, fierce and unyielding, held a hunger that mirrored Dox's, a hunger that seemed to drink the very night air. "Show me," he whispered, his thumb tracing the line of my pulse, the heat of his touch igniting a fire beneath my skin. The three of us stood in a circle of moonlight and rain, the cathedral's broken arches echoing our breaths. Dox's claws traced a slow line along my hip, the pressure of his massive paw a grounding force. His breath hot against my ear, he whispered, "Let me taste you," his words a promise and a threat intertwined. Luka's hand tightened, his thumb pressing harder, his voice a low growl, "I will claim you, even if the world burns." The certainty in his tone sent a shiver down my spine, a mixture of terror and exhilaration that made my knees weak. Silk tore from my gown, spilling midnight threads onto the stone. The sound of fabric ripping was sharp, like a gasp, and the torn edges fluttered in the wind, catching the moonlight and turning them into dark ribbons that fell around my ankles. Shadows pulsed, and the scent of rain-soaked pine mingled with the metallic tang of my own desire. I could feel the heat of Dox's body against my back, the raw power of his muscles humming beneath his fur, while Luka's fingers dug into the flesh of my throat, anchoring me to the moment. A surge of heat rose from my core, a tide of longing that threatened to drown me. I inhaled the pine-scented air, letting it fill my lungs, and let the thunder of Dox's growl echo in my chest. My own voice, barely a whisper, slipped out, "Take me." Dox lowered his massive head, his teeth grazing the soft skin of my neck, tasting the copper of my pulse. The contact was electric, a spark that set my nerves alight. Luka pressed his lips to the curve of my jaw, his kiss fierce, claiming as if to seal a pact. The rain hammered the stone, a relentless percussion that matched the rhythm of our bodies. The world narrowed to the three of us, to the taste of rain on stone, to the scent of pine and blood, to the sound of our breathing mingling with the storm. I could hear my own heartbeat, a steady drum that seemed to sync with the thunder above. My mind raced, a torrent of thoughts and memories flooding back. The night I first met Dox, the way his eyes had held the night sky. The moment Luka had saved me from a band of marauders, his hand gripping my wrist with a promise that he would never let me fall. I remembered the first time I had felt the weight of my own destiny, the prophecy whispered by the seer in the market square. "She shall bind the wolf and the man, and through their union the darkness shall falter." I had laughed then, thinking it a tale for children, but now, standing in the ruined cathedral, the words felt like a stone pressed against my chest. Dox's growl deepened, reverberating through the stone walls. "You are fire, my love," he said, his voice softer now, almost reverent. "You burn brighter than any star I have ever chased across the night sky." Luka's hand slipped from my throat to the small of my back, his fingers digging into the fabric of my dress, pulling me closer. "And you are my compass," he murmured, his breath hot against my ear. "When the world turns to ash, you are the flame that guides me home." I closed my eyes, letting the sensations wash over me. The rain was cold on my skin, but the heat radiating from Dox and Luka was a furnace that melted any lingering fear. My thoughts became a single thread, a line of pure feeling that tied me to them both. I could feel the rhythm of Dox's heart against my back, a steady thrum that matched my own. Luka's pulse beat against my shoulder, a rapid drum that spoke of urgency and devotion. The storm began to wane, the thunder rolling away like distant drums. The rain softened, turning to a gentle mist that clung to the stone and to our skin. Moonlight faded, giving way to the first pale hints of dawn. The broken windows framed a sky that was bruised with the colors of sunrise, soft pinks, muted purples, and a gold that seemed to promise new beginnings. When the storm finally eased, the cathedral lay quiet, the broken windows framing a pale sunrise. My gown lay in tatters, but my heart was whole, beating in sync with two fierce protectors. Dox rested his massive head against my shoulder, his fur warm against my skin, while Luka's hand lingered on my throat, his thumb a promise of endless devotion. I turned my face to the rising sun, feeling the first kiss of daylight on my cheek. The light was gentle, a caress that seemed to seal the night's promises. "We are bound," I said, my voice steady, "by fire, by blood, by desire." Dox's amber eyes glowed with a fierce protectiveness, and Luka's smile was a blade of steel softened by love. Together we stepped out of the ruined sanctuary, ready to face whatever darkness awaited, knowing that the heat between us would never fade. The path beyond the cathedral was a winding road through a forest that had been scarred by war. Charred trees stood like blackened sentinels, their branches reaching toward the sky as if pleading for redemption. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and the faint, lingering perfume of the sage we had burned earlier. I could hear the distant cry of a night bird, a solitary note that seemed to echo the hope stirring within me. Luka walked beside me, his hand firm on my elbow, his presence a steady anchor. "We must reach the citadel before nightfall," he said, his voice low but urgent. "The council will not wait for us to gather our strength." "And what of the darkness that stalks the borders?" I asked, my eyes scanning the horizon where shadows clung to the trees. "It will come," Dox answered, his voice a rumble that seemed to come from the very ground beneath us. "But we will meet it together." The words settled over me like a cloak, warm and protective. I felt a surge of confidence, a fierce resolve that rose from the depths of my soul. The memory of the night's union with Dox and Luka pulsed through me, a reminder that I was not alone, that I carried within me the strength of both the wolf and the man. We moved forward, the rain-slick stones giving way to moss-covered roots. The forest seemed to breathe with us, each rustle of leaves a whispered encouragement. I could feel Dox's presence beside me, his massive form moving with a grace that belied his size. He would pause now and then, his ears flicking at the faintest sound, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of threat. Luka's hand never left my elbow, his grip firm yet gentle. He would glance at me occasionally, his gaze softening with affection, then return his focus to the path ahead. I could see the determination etched into the lines of his face, the way his jaw set when he thought I wasn't looking. As we walked, my mind drifted back to the moment when Dox had first licked the scar on my wrist, the scar that marked the night I had been rescued from the clutches of a rogue sorcerer. The memory was vivid, the cold stone floor, the echo of my own scream, the sudden rush of fur and teeth, the fierce protectiveness in Dox's eyes as he tore the sorcerer's staff in two. That night I had felt a bond form, a silent promise that we would watch over each other. And Luka, his hands had been steady as he bound my wounds, his voice a low chant that seemed to weave magic into the very air. He had whispered, "You are not alone, my queen. We will stand together against the darkness." Now standing at the edge of the forest, the sunrise painting the world in gold, those promises felt renewed, amplified by the night's intimate communion. I could feel the lingering heat of Dox's breath on my neck, the lingering taste of his teeth on my skin, the lingering pressure of Luka's thumb on my pulse. It was as if the night had forged a trinity of fire, blood, and desire that could not be broken. We emerged from the forest onto a hill that overlooked the citadel. The stone walls rose like a fortress against the sky, their battlements scarred by previous sieges. Flags fluttered in the gentle morning breeze, their colors dulled by the soot of recent battles. The citadel's gates stood open, a silent invitation to those who dared to enter. "We are here," Luka said, his voice carrying a note of triumph. "Let them see what we have become." Dox let out a low, resonant howl that seemed to shake the very stones of the citadel. The sound was both a warning and a proclamation, a declaration that the night's bond would not be broken by any force. I stepped forward, feeling the weight of my torn gown brush against the stone, the remnants of silk clinging to my skin like a second skin. I lifted my head, letting the sunrise wash over my face, the light catching the droplets of rain that still clung to my hair. "We are bound," I repeated louder now, my voice carrying across the courtyard, "by fire, by blood, by desire, and we will protect this realm together." The council members, cloaked in robes of deep indigo, emerged from the great hall. Their eyes widened at the sight of Dox, his massive form towering over the courtyard, and Luka, his stance unwavering. They whispered among themselves, some with fear, others with awe. One of the elders, a woman with silver hair that fell like a waterfall, stepped forward. "You have returned," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of relief and reverence. "The prophecy spoke of a night when the wolf and the man would unite with the Queen of Fire. It seems the stars have aligned." "The darkness grows stronger," another counselor added, his tone urgent. "The shadow veil spreads beyond the western borders. If we do not act now, all will be lost." I felt a surge of determination surge through me, a fire that matched the sunrise. "Then we will strike at dawn," I declared. "Dox, you will lead the charge through the western pass. Luka, you will rally the soldiers and hold the citadel. I will summon the flames of the ancient altar and burn the veil." The council fell silent, the weight of my words settling like a stone on their hearts. Dox lowered his massive head, his amber eyes meeting mine, a silent promise passing between us. Luka placed his hand over my heart, his thumb pressing gently, as if to steady the rhythm that now beat in unison with his own. The day unfolded in a blur of steel, fire, and feral roars. Dox surged forward, his massive paws thundering across the battlefield, scattering the shadowy wraiths that had plagued the western lands. His howl split the sky, a sound that seemed to tear the veil of darkness asunder. Luka fought beside the soldiers, his blade flashing like lightning, his voice rallying the troops with fierce cries. I stood before the ancient altar, its stone surface etched with runes that glowed faintly in the morning light. I raised my hands, feeling the heat of the rising sun mingle with the lingering ember of the night's fire. I whispered the incantation taught to me by the seer, my voice steady, each syllable a thread weaving together the elements of fire, blood, and desire. The altar erupted in a blaze of golden flame, the fire leaping high into the sky, its heat washing over the battlefield. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as the light consumed them. The veil cracked, its darkness splintering like glass. When the last wisp of shadow dissolved, the battlefield fell silent. The air was thick with the scent of burnt pine and ozone, the ground still trembling from Dox's thunderous steps. Luka stood beside me, his armor stained with the blood of the fallen, his eyes shining with a fierce pride. "We have done it," he said, his voice hoarse but triumphant. Dox lowered his massive head once more, his fur still warm against my cheek. "The night is ours," he growled softly, his breath a comforting warmth. I turned to the sunrise, the light now fully bathing the citadel in gold. My heart swelled with a love that was both fierce and tender, a love forged in fire and tempered by steel. "We are bound," I whispered again, this time not just to Dox and Luka, but to the realm itself, to the promise of a new dawn. The three of us stood together, the ruins of the cathedral behind us a memory, the citadel before us a beacon of hope. The heat between us would never fade, for it was not merely desire, it was the fire that would keep the darkness at bay for generations to come. And as the sun rose higher, casting its golden rays across the land, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them as one, bound by fire, blood, and an unbreakable desire.